Peace, peace, peace. I am Phillip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the June 15th edition of Rhetorically Speaking. As you always know, that Monday is a hashtag You Good Man Men's Wellness Monday. Unfortunately, I'm not going to say unfortunately. Fortunately, we do have one representative of the brothers who typically show up on Monday. We have Michael Olnick in the building. How you feeling, Mike?
I'm feeling good.
I'm feeling good. Glad to be here.
Word. I'm glad we were able to chat through Instagram, unlike the other brothers who I've been texting. I guess they got T-Mobile too, just like me, and nothing is going through. Nothing is coming back. I think the 5G birthers, they might be right.
They took down that tower somewhere. Set it on fire.
Man, they took the tower down. They took Columbus down. You know what I mean? Everything went down within the last 48 to 72 hours. So, we still gonna have this conversation, with you and I, and I'm gonna get right into it, man. So first we're gonna have this conversation about Dave Chappelle. And I'm not sure how many of you watched the special that he had. I guess it came out within the last week or so. You see the little Dave Chappelle pic. Take that off because I don't want to blur Mike out. But he came out with his, I don't even know what to call it, because it wasn't stand-up comedy. Oh, there's feedback on the guest in. All right, let me see real quick. Hopefully that's a little better. Oh, you know what? Maybe I need to put my headphones in like I thought I had them in. Again, man, we in wonky times. You know what I mean? Like, we in wonky times where it's just like anything and everything is happening. Even though I don't work on Mondays, Mike doesn't work on Mondays. It's still like a case of the Mondays where it's just exhausting. It's exhausting. So appreciate that, Dane, and let me know if there's still some issues taking place. So we were talking about Dave Chappelle, and he came out with his 846. Again, I don't even want to call it a stand-up. I guess call it a venting session.
Yeah. I mean, it was almost like his State of the Union on the situation at hand. And even though he said he didn't want to be a voice, he was being a voice. Like, he was being a celebrity at the forefront,
Yeah. Yeah. And so, again, I didn't watch it until maybe about a half hour ago. Oh, first shout out to the people who are watching on Facebook Live, like Dane Christopher Wagner. I don't know how old he is, right? But when you put your middle name up, you want to make sure you somebody, right? When you put your middle name, like Stephen A. Smith and all these other people, when you put your middle name in, listen, that means you're about it. So appreciate you, Dave. Shout out to the people who are watching on YouTube Live at Quantify LLC. Make sure you hit that subscription button. And shout out to the people who are tuned in on Instagram Live. You might not hear what Mike is talking about. Listen, you're going to have to hit up the Facebook Live or the YouTube Live, again, at Quantify LLC. And so to get back into this Dave Chappelle conversation, peace, Lisa. To get back into this Dave Chappelle conversation, I don't know what I was expecting. I watched it maybe about an hour ago because I'm not necessarily a fan of Dave Chappelle. I finally had to come to grips with, he's just not that funny to me. And I know that's ludicrous, a ludicrous statement to make. I laughed at the Chappelle show. I thought some of the skits were more intellectually brilliant as opposed to just ha funny. And so, his stand-ups, they just became insufferable for me. So I'm not necessarily a Dave fan. What about you?
Well, I mean, if we take it back to Killing Him Softly was a great stand-up. That's like predate the Chappelle show. That was like on Comedy Central. Because even back then he would talk about it was kind of riding off the coattails of like Richard Pryor with that kind of bit stuff. But his latest things, I was talking to a buddy of mine. We both agree he just sounds like an angry old man half the time. And it's not the same vibe. And I wasn't really expecting a stand-up just based on it being called 846 as like, I feel like he's gonna rant for a little bit, and he definitely did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I too have fallen off the Chappelle wagon after his last couple stand-ups, especially when he started throwing in a lot of transphobic humor, which just isn't necessary.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because maybe everybody doesn't see it necessarily the way that you and I do. So when you say the trans comedy, because I do have some quotes for just some different people who I respect and just their thoughts on Dave outside of the conversation on black men.
Yeah, he had this whole bit where he was basically talking about the LGBTQ community, and at first it seemed like he was going to go one route because he was saying people that identify as trans probably have the hardest road, and like evidence would say they do. The average lifespan of a black trans woman is 35 years old.
Wow.
Like put that in perspective. But then he like turned it into this like kind of tasteless joke about why someone would decide to become or feel that they were trans and wanted to transition, and it just didn't fit, right?
Yeah.
And then when he got caught out on it, he doubled down. Like he couldn't see the distance he needed to get from the joke and be like, yeah, that was poorly played. Instead, he continues to double down on it for some reason.
Yeah. And so I think that goes into what I got from the special. And so it pretty much is 28 minutes of Dave talking about police brutality in America from a black man's perspective. And to that, give him kudos for sure. He was very passionate in discussing it. I learned within the first 10 minutes. Like I saw okay, this isn't about funny. Like he's trying to vent. He's trying to get his thoughts out. He had a while to process everything that's transpiring when it comes to police brutality in black men, and I emphasize in black men, because he made no mention of Breonna Taylor. He made no mention of any trans person who's been killed recently. He made no mention of Sandra Bland, and the list goes on and on and on. He made no mention of them. Every person that he mentioned were in reference to police brutality was cis hetero men. And I think that speaks to the gap that exists with Dave and being able to reach literally everybody, because I think there's space and room for everybody truly to love Dave, right? But as you said, when you're not including, if you're not even bringing to light and having healthy conversation, healthy dialogue about other communities outside of cis hetero men, then I can't give you the GOAT status. Right, I can't say you're somebody that's super quote unquote woke, even though that's we know that's such a cliche term. I'm trying to find this quote from Damon Young, who's a writer, a great prolific writer at Very Smart Brothers, and I found it. Here we go. He says, the first 9 minutes are as powerful as anything I've seen on TV. I was actually in tears, and not the laughter tears, but the other ones. Number 2, and these are his 3 takeaways. His blind spot on gender is getting larger and deeper. Was a crater, now it's a canyon. I mentioned this to a friend earlier today. She corrected me, said you can't call it a blind spot if it's intentional. And I think that's such a poignant point, that it is intentional, right? Because again, if he's so brilliant, right? How can he have blind spots? We've seen him touch on so many different topics, right? We've seen him touch on whether it's police brutality, whether it's, O.J. Simpson, whether it's just so many different areas that makes us say he gets it. For him to just completely omit it, it makes me think that it's intentional. What you think?
Yeah, and then on top of that, apparently there was like a Don Lemon joke worked in there that has since been cut out of it, but it's circulating on Twitter where like he makes a comment about Don Lemon and him being gay, but apparently it's been chopped. So there is this whole. It doesn't seem like Dave either gets the LGBTQ community, or he chooses to just continue to use it as like a bin that he can pull jokes from. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and like I get why he would be speaking from like the black man cis hetero point of view, because that's him, right?
Yeah.
So that is where he's going to connect. That's where he's going to pull most of his vitriol from, and like connection to these victims of police brutality. But there is like he's just tone deaf lately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said, like it seems purposeful. It's like, okay, well now this is me. This is my new bit. This is the thing I'm going to do from now on because it's funny.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think the creativity aspect of it, and I think that's where it started to lose me. Right, he started to lose me because I was excited when he came back to comedy. Again, it takes a lot for me to laugh. Like I really need the truly. Well, no, because I can't say quote unquote intellectual humor. I'm not going to say that, but I need a different. I need dry humor, right? And at one point, I need to be able. I need thought provoking humor. That's why I never got into Martin. I like Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Even though Jamie Foxx is on is on the slapstick side. But and so I thought Chappelle would be somebody who could be that, especially for me, that black comedian that I can look to really get that political commentary, because that's what I enjoy that, right? So when people are throwing Paul Mooney under the bus and calling him racist, I laugh my ass off at some of the jokes, right? Because I think they're clever, they're offensive, but there's still some type of, it still has the, maybe I'm doing a poor job of explaining it, but just that,
no, there was like more creativity.
It's more creativity.
It was more of a development. Now he's doing like shock jokes, like where he's just saying something, like even the stuff he said about Candace Owens in the stand-up.
And
like there was no creativity in that. It was just a jab.
And that's why I say that's why it wasn't even a joke, right? Like and how comfortable he felt. You know how I talk about this at the group, like him calling women bitches, just whether it's Laura Ingraham, Candace Owens, like that was his go-to, right? And he made no bones about it. Like, this is what I'm good.
He even said he said it's a black thing. He said, I just call everybody bitches. It's a black thing. That was his exact quote.
No doubt. And so I'm not sure who trying to log in, but they're not gonna be able to make it this time. And so yeah, no, I get it. And I think at the end he said, you know, this will always be like a safe space. There's not gonna be any tap dancing, like tap tap tap. You know what I mean? And so he's saying he's always gonna be this person where he's going to speak truth to power, which I appreciate, right? But he's also going to continue to be this apparently unenlightened individual when it comes to issues not relating to hetero cis males. Somebody on Instagram says, I get what you're saying, but it feels like people are over analyzing. That's his lane, always has been. We can't just appreciate where he stands and what he chose to say without asking about what didn't he say? Someone else could fill that lane. Again, the times have changed, right? Like this is no.
But was that his lane? Like the Chappelle show, that wasn't his lane. His early like the Killing Him Softly days, like he talked about, like when I said he like pulled from Richard Pryor's, he like talked about black and white people, and like his whole DC has changed bit where he's like, you can't scare these white people. Like he was playing on like these old tropes that you could see in Richard Pryor. And now it's like he's given up that aspect of it since returning. And he's changed his new lane to this like uncreative, angry guy that just is making jokes for shock value.
Yeah. I think he definitely has every right to be angry. Right, I think, you know, when we sit and watch that 28 minutes, I'm like, yo, he definitely has every right to be angry as a black man in America about everything that's taking place. But again, it's just not translating. And again, to what the person was saying on Instagram, like that's been who he is. All right, even if we give him that, at some point you have to evolve, because now at this point, no, you know, it's the equivalent to the Christopher Columbus statue. Like, yeah, you were able to get that
Mm-hmm.
off 20 years ago, but now we're more enlightened, we're more aware, we're more educated. And so if you don't evolve with the times, um, then you're going to get left behind. Now, what you have is
Mm-hmm.
you have people who continue to be left in this. You have people who are continue to be trapped in that time as well. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They continue to be
Yep.
stuck in that time as well. And so these people are progressing with him or not progressing. And so that's why we see
Yeah.
the audiences that he continues to draw, because now he's a mythical figure in comedy, right?
Yeah.
So he's always going to command an audience. Go ahead, you keep talking to that point, Mike. I want to speak to just some of the comments that we got.
Well, yeah, and I think the one thing that I will say that this special has done is it has grabbed a large white audience as well, because my white friends were sharing that nonstop on social media. Go watch this, go watch this. So if anything, it did work as like a signal boost. Although, I mean, at this point in the game, like, I don't know why you still need signal boosting for this. Like, it's very apparent, it's very in our face. But I think the one thing that Dave has is he does have a very large white audience that he's reaching with this special. So maybe there are some people watching that don't connect to that anger or haven't seen that kind of anger and need to see it to wake up.
Yeah. Yeah. I again, it's and that's where I think I felt him when we talk about the this 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Again, when he's talking about experiencing the earthquake for 30 to 40 seconds, and then the knee
Mm-hmm.
being on the neck and the officer standing, with their hands in their pockets. They just released a video today of the Asian guy. His name escapes me. I think this is Zane trying to get in, and I have no idea how to get him in while we're in the midst of it. Um, and so we're gonna pause right quick, ladies and gentlemen. Give us a couple seconds as I try to configure this. Be right back. Yeah, this I don't think this is gonna be able to work. turn this off. So we we are back on Rhetorically Speaking. Hopefully y'all can hear Zane. I'm sure you will let us know. But we had to bring it back so he can get in on this conversation that we're having about what are we talking about? We're talking about Dave Chappelle, right? We're talking about Dave Chappelle. We're talking about just what some people are calling blind spots when it comes to his omission of anything that are any persons that's non-cis hetero males. So I don't know if you had the chance to watch it, Zane. Hopefully that's what you were doing the last 35 minutes. Hopefully you had the opportunity to watch the Dave Chappelle 28 minutes, 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and just how he's omitted trans people. Mike talked about how historically he's spoken disparagingly, in a disparaging way about trans folk, how he omits people like Breonna Taylor in that entire 28-minute, not even stand up a rant that he has. So feel free to hop on in.
Yes. I think he's not beyond reproach, but it's hard because his points are so strong. And even though he kind of stays in his cis male lane, I think even if you go back to what is the stretch and lock or whatever the sticks and stones. I think that was the video that he got a lot of flack for talking about trans people.
Yeah, that was it.
But the point that he was making can't be, and I might get flack for this as well. That the trans issue became louder when it was about a white male becoming a trans woman. And I think that point didn't go by me when I heard him make that point. In that. So that's one thing. I think that it is hard for the black trans, and I can't speak for trans people. I can speak for black gay men to get completely on board with issues that seem generated by the white gay male power structure, right? Because these things get catapulted to the front when they decided, even polls, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, now that Ryan, whatever his name is pushing this thing is there, but we've had trans women. I did a piece, and we've had trans women who's been being killed, and we've been talking about it. I did a piece about Niza Morris, who was a trans woman that I used to sit at the bar with at Key West, who died after she rode in a car with police, and I think that was like 2004, 2005, 2006. I don't remember the date. So he omitted it, but his point about him having a problem with the issue is relevant. I'm ready to go to battle with him about him omitting things, right? I would love to have a discussion with him about that. But it's hard when the whole context of the other thing is so powerful. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't, but we have to learn to I don't even want to say give him grace. But one thing doesn't cancel out the other, right? He has blind spots, but his points are still so strong. You know what I mean? And you know that in a conversation he's going to hear you. You know what I mean? I feel like I don't feel like that about everybody. So
yeah, and I read the comments by Damon Young, excuse me. Damon John, I got football in the brain. Just when it talks about, we view him in the light where we call his work brilliant, how he's completely has the pulse of the community and what's taking place. And so it's not necessarily a blind spot. It's a willful omission, right? Like, he never has these conversations. Even in the midst of the 28 minutes, he never mentioned, Breonna Taylor. He never mentioned, Sandra Bland and the host of other women who've, died at the hands of the police. And so even when we talk about just how he spoke about women, during this piece, right? It's Candace Owens. Yes, she deserves some vitriol.
That was horrible.
And Laura Ingraham.
Laura Ingraham. That bothered me. You know what I mean? Because that bothered me. Not when he used the C word against Laura Ingraham. I didn't know the whole story behind Laura Ingram's comment against Kobe Bryant.
Well, no, LeBron James.
LeBron James. Yeah, see, I didn't know the story. But that was rough. That was a tough moment.
Just to bring it back to like the things that he said about the trans community. It's not just the Kate. I get where you're coming from with the Caitlyn Jenner stuff. I totally get that. Like I understood his point on that. But at one point in that stand-up, he talks about two dudes sitting in a room together, and them deciding to become trans boiled down to, hey, we should cut off our dicks. Like that is an actual joke that he makes. And like that one is so tone deaf and so lacking in any kind of setup. It's just, I think that's the one where he got a lot of pushback on. Like when he was boiling down the trans experience to two guys sitting in the room and saying they want to cut off their penises. That's not a joke, man. You're denigrating an experience of people who are already dealing with so much trauma and struggle. Like pick a different area to make a joke about, you know?
Yeah. But again, it takes a level of introspection. I don't know what he's exposed to in his outside world. I remember a little bit of the controversy with regards to trans folk, because then I think they asked the trans woman comedian, and her name escapes me, her thoughts, and I think she validated his comments.
I know who you're talking about. Her. Oh man, what is her name? She's problematic.
Okay.
She's problematic. Yeah, definitely problematic. Because my problem with her wasn't her conversation with and it's the Tiffany Haddish. She's featured in the Tiffany Haddish series. My problem with her wasn't I don't remember that point, but I remember listening to a Breakfast Club interview with her. And she took men to task who were attracted to trans women. And I had a problem with that because they only fit into one box, right? And I think that one thing that I understand about this physical body is it's just a physical body, right? And that trans, for me, is an expression of a metaphysical reality. And everybody doesn't come into their physical body. Their spirituality doesn't always match their physical body. So when you talk about people being attracted to other people, just and you dismiss. If you only talk about it in the physical realm, I think you make a mistake, right? And I think what I understand and how I translate it in my head when men are attracted to a female body, but still has male genitalia. That doesn't. I think the way I put it was, I can be attracted to a woman with a penis. You know what I mean? A man can be attracted to a woman with a penis, but it's still the female energy that's attracted to. And beyond that, it's a metaphysical thing that he's attracted to, or she's attracted to, or they're attracted to. Sometimes those things cross boundaries that we can't conceive of because we're so binary in the way we think. I think I'm blind again. I need to turn this down.
Go ahead, Zane.
But I think I might have two things on. That might be it. Might be. Is it gone now?
All right, we'll let them tell us. This one of those. Okay. This one of those joints where we probably need to be in pre-production for a little bit. You know what I mean? Just to iron out all the kinks or what have you. But listen, man, we still getting the information to the people. Her name was Daphne Dorman.
Oh, that's not the girl I was talking about. Okay. I was talking about the girl from Tiffany Haddish, who was I'll look it up as I talk. But my point is, you can't tell somebody why they're attracted to somebody and then say that they're gay. You know what I mean? A sexual reality is on a spectrum for a lot of different people. And I think when people do that to someone, and I'm off the topic in a way, but you mentioned this comedian, and I'm actually responding to a different comedian's comment. But you just have to have a broader way of thinking. I don't know how we get you change people to be more loving towards things they don't understand. And I was listening to Marc Lamontagne say something on an interview a few minutes ago, and I think now I lost the point that he said. They were talking about this. They were talking about how we don't include, we're exclusive. Oh, this was the point. The point is that as we fight for what we fight for, we're really fighting for a white male image, right? At the top of the hierarchy is that. So everything that we fight for is in our subconscious and sometimes in our conscious is that. So women get excluded and everything that's not white male gets excluded as we fight for this thing. But we have to understand that that's not really what we should be fighting for. So until you can flip that way of thinking, how do you flip it? We're starting to flip it because we have conversation and you bring it in. You pointed out to me that I accept these comments with him without a serious critique of his omissions, right? So yeah, I see that, but I'm so blinded by he's still brilliant, even though he's missing this thing, right? You can't just completely dismiss him. He's still brilliant. Now, the thing is, how do you have a conversation with him to help him start to include these things, right? Somebody of his girth, for lack of a better word, has to.
Okay, all right, we'll go with it. Go ahead.
Somebody has to, you know what I mean, have that conversation with them. You know what I mean? Say, look, dog, you forgot all these people. Like somebody else has to call them out on it.
But see, I think when we talk about that, and I bring up Daphne Dorman, who died by suicide last October, right? He mentioned in one of his stand-ups, I'm assuming, because again, I don't necessarily watch him anymore. I definitely don't find his stand-ups funny. Maybe if he came back with the Chappelle show, I can sit and watch that. But he said that Daphne Dorman was laughing the hardest at all of his jokes, and he considered her a friend, right? And so I guess that's what he looks at as far as validation, and we do that sometimes, right? That's my white friend, my black friend.
But listen, did you hear? I think I heard Dr. Kaar break this down, right? So Dr. Kaar was on the Karen Hunter show, and he broke down that whole thing the other day. But I think I've heard him break down that stand-up piece, and they talk about how he academically sort of skirts, or maybe it was a comedian show, skirts this kind of criticism because he implicates himself in being attracted to a trans woman in that whole stand-up piece.
Who? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Dave Chappelle.
Okay.
Dave Chappelle. That's how he sort of puts himself inside of the thing.
Okay.
So like he's part of he's allowed to.
I don't know if he's allowed, but he gave himself permission in that. And I feel bad. Defending that. If it's that kind of ignorance, and I shouldn't say if. God, I feel like Angelo. I feel like Angelo to say. I feel like, yeah. I think just go back and look at that part when he weaves all that shit together, and then he talks about how he was attracted to that woman that night on the dance floor, and why he might be angry because he was attracted to the woman. And I think that explains a lot about maybe who he is and why he does the things he does. But he's very introspective and nuanced, and sometimes you hear the big things, you hear him talk about, but you got to watch for the loop around with him, I think.
Well,
and
yeah,
not
that
that excuses him, but
that's a part of his new approach. He has like his new approach with stand-up is he does a narrative. Like he's got a story that he continues to hit throughout every single bit. He even did it with this 846 special where he was referencing ways the situation connected to him with his birth time, with his birth date, with his great-grandfather and the black delegation. Like that is part of his bit now, that you do have to kind of take You have to take the whole encompassing show instead of just focusing on specific details sometimes. And listen, I'm with you, Zane. Like, I don't think Dave needs to represent everything to everybody. I don't think he has to grasp everything. I know I don't grasp everything. My only issue came about because he kind of doubled down when he received criticism, which kind of makes me feel like he's not willing to have a conversation or look at how his language at times when it's talking about the trans community is offensive.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
And you know, I want to, you know, and it's Flame Monroe. I think that's who you're talking about.
Flame Monroe,
saying, yeah, not funny in my opinion. Right? It's just, again, I don't think anybody that was on that Tiffany Haddish stand up was funny. But again, I have a different type of humor. I do want to talk about the point that he made about Don Lemon, I think we all can agree with the Candace Owens commentary and the Laura Ingraham commentary that it was just so flagrant and it was just egregious. It was unnecessary. If we're trying to get, you know, show him grace and, you know, just the immense pain behind the comments, right? But again, for somebody who is as brilliant, who we find to be articulate when he wants to be, it's just like he goes for that low-hanging fruit when it comes to people that he doesn't like, right? It could have been a little more detail-oriented when we're talking about Candace Owens. You know what I mean? It could talk about how she got the NAACP involved when she was having an issue in school, right? And now how she's contradictory by shitting on him, right? Like I would hope for that type of commentary, just not, oh, she got a stank vagina. It's just like, what I did chuckle at was when he threw Azalea Banks in there. And Azalea Banks is a woman, she's just outrageous, right? She says whatever's on her mind, and she alleged that they had some type of sex. It's a sexual encounter. And I think that was him acknowledging that it took place, right? Because he even chuckled at it. But again, I'm not sure. But yeah, so but to the point of him, and when he talked about Don Lemon and calling celebrities out, I didn't think Don Lemon was wrong at all to ask where are celebrities at in these times, because again, a lot of their money comes from the quote unquote establishment that is doing the oppressing, right? And so you're only coming out to get the black dollar, but you're not out here standing up for black folk. You know, I understood why Don Lemon would ask where are the celebrity black folk. We see the Beyonce come out with the statement, and it's probably because Taylor Swift came out with a statement. Right, so if Taylor coming out with a statement about Black lives or what have you, and Beyonce sitting there silent, it's going to look a kind of way. So just to get your thoughts briefly on that.
I really feel like you should leave Beyonce alone, because
why?
You know what I mean?
Why? Why? Because you're a beehive.
Yeah, the beehive's going to get you.
I'm a beehive adjacent.
No, I mean,
I'm gonna say this about Beyonce. Beyonce can't be underrated. Beyonce is the most studied artist I've seen in the pop arena in about 25 years, right? And I say that because I watch her from a dance point of view. I watched her evolve from Destiny's Child. I watched her study every great artist, and it shows up in her work. I watched her study Alvin Ailey. I watched her study Tina Turner. I watched her study Diana Ross. I watched her study theater, all the great musicals. I watched her study all that stuff. Then you go back, she incorporates her book learning into all of her pop stuff. She's incorporated Yoruba culture, and I don't think she's done it as a gimmick. I think she's done it because she's thought about it and studied it and been curious about it. You watch how she studies history. That whole Coachella thing was peppered with Black Nina Simone speeches and Toni Morrison speeches and stuff that she extracted. So when you talk about somebody standing up for the culture, Beyonce represents. Somebody like Janet Jackson, who had the same type of podium and attention, didn't do that, right? She had her thing, she didn't do that. Madonna did something totally different. But I'm saying, if you, as a pop icon, she's taken from Nina Simone, Maya Angelou. She's taking lessons from Eartha Kitt. She's taking those kind of lessons. And she's taking performance lessons from Tina Turner, Patti LaBelle, all of those greats. So I admire her because she's a studied, hardworking artist.
Why
she's
though?
A thoughtful person.
And what was at the end of that? Like she could, and again, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong.
Well, she didn't have to do it, dog. She could have just played out and just did titties and hips.
And kudos to her. She gets a golf clap. Now but the stakes are higher now. The stakes are higher now, and I think that's what Dom Lemon is saying.
She's been part of the conversation from day one, though.
And wait,
I wouldn't say day one. I wouldn't say day one. White folk have accepted her now since.
No, she hasn't gotten an award, dog. She's been blackballed.
She hasn't.
She's been blackballed in the musical community because she speaks her word, and when you speak your truth, you get blackballed.
But beyond her artistry, right? When we're talking about activism, we say that people at our level, like people that aren't celebrities, there's different lanes for all of us.
Right.
So then also, when it comes to celebrities, there should be different lanes for all of them too.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And I think that's kind of what Dave was getting at when he was, because he opened up, I think one of the first lines he says on the special is, he talks about the protests and he talks about, you guys are good drivers, I'll be in the back seat. Like this idea that the streets are already handling this, so I don't need to be in the lane where I'm being really vocal. And if we expect like people like you or
what is perception though? Like perception is, again, you there when it's the money is looking great, right? When the money is flowing, but now here we are when your whole entire brand could get wrecked. And not saying that's necessarily what's happening.
Well, who are we talking about though? Because the Nick Cannons are out there in the street. You got folks out there representing who are celebrities.
J. Cole was in protest over the last week.
We're talking prior to, right? Like, and I don't know. I think Don Lemon made these comments maybe a couple weeks ago, not necessarily last week. I think it was a minute ago when he made those comments when things were first starting to. When Tyler Perry was coming out and doing sing-alongs and shit, you know what I mean, with people. It's just like, yo, what are we doing here? And I think that's a fair question to ask. I don't think you're above being asked, yo, and it might not necessarily, if it doesn't fit you, then you don't have to respond to it. So Dave, if you out here, Cole, if you out here, but it's a lot of big folk who out here getting the money. I don't know what Diddy's doing. I don't necessarily follow him, but it's a lot of black folk in this with celebrity who only show themselves when it's time to get that check. They like politicians, right? They out here for the vote, and then they keep it moving.
And I think what Don Lemon did, which I liked, which I caught a clip after that. He said that when he was talking about that, he was saying Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier and Marlon Brando and all of those people stepped up to the plate in a different way. You know what I mean? Muhammad Ali. All of them sacrificed something. They stepped up to the plate in a different way.
What did the leadership look like at that time, though? Think about we're talking about Malcolm X, we're talking about MLK, we're talking about Black Panther Party. We don't have that kind of leadership right now.
I was just watching a video with Sidney Poitier and James Baldwin sitting on a set together. So I definitely get it. But that brings us to our next conversation, just to pivot just a little bit, because again, we're talking about that black leadership. So that goes to the NBA and Kyrie Irving. I'm just putting a picture up for those who aren't aware of what they look like. They are two well-known basketball players who play in the NBA. Kyrie Irving is vice president in the NBA Players Union. And so on Friday in a phone call, he brought up the idea that, listen, I don't know if we should play in July. Now, the NBA is scheduled to resume at the end of July, with training camp taking place like in the beginning of July. And what he's saying is, outside of Corona, because we recognize the threat that Corona still is showing. It's still showing itself, right? We see in Florida we have 2,000 new cases, because again, Florida is Florida, and Texas is Texas. Atlanta, rest in peace to the good brother Rayshard Brooks, right? Again, I try not to even keep up with what black person has been killed recently. I try not to because it's not good for my mental health. But he brought up on a call with about 70 to 80 players that he doesn't necessarily know if they should return to basketball. And the reason that he gave was a coronavirus and then taking away from the progress that's being made with the Black Lives Matter movement. Dwight Howard, who is much maligned, Dwight Howard. He's had a up and down basketball career where his teammates don't necessarily trust him, and I don't think this is going to ingratiate him anyway to his teammates that he has now on the Lakers, where he says he agrees with Kyrie that basketball or entertainment isn't needed right now, that it's a distraction. I would love nothing more than to win my first NBA championship, but the unity of my people would be an even bigger championship. That's just too beautiful to pass up. What's better time than now for us to be focusing on our families? And so, we talk about leadership. Here we have two basketball players who aren't necessarily the best representatives to deliver this message. Again, Dwight Howard, he's had, issues with teammates. He had a quote unquote scandal with the trans woman, right? Where she came out and said she was in a relationship with Dwight Howard. Then you have Kyrie Irving. He's a flat earther, right? Like, need I say more? He believes that the earth is flat. And so he has an eccentric way of looking at it. So they aren't necessarily the two people who you want leading this type of movement. But I do think they made valuable points. Me personally, I'm on the fence with it, right? Because I understand completely what Dwight is saying, what Kyrie is saying. Like, listen, let's not take the attention away from what truly matters right now, which is this movement that none of us has seen, right, in our existence. If you're 40 and under, right, we haven't seen anything like this worldwide and for this length of time. We're now about to go into our third week of protesting and continuous protesting with regards to things that are taking place. So, I'll first say that I do see what they are saying, because we are easily distracted. The attention span of the average person has gone from 12 seconds to 8 seconds within the last 10 or 15 years or so. Right, I blame SpongeBob personally, because studies have come out to say that SpongeBob has reduced the attention span just with regards to how fast the frames are switching, right, on there, the coloring, the effects, and all of that. When you're a parent, you gotta do all this research. You can't just watch SpongeBob to watch SpongeBob. So I get that point. So I'll throw that out there just to get you guys' thought on it when they talk about, in essence, boycotting sports, boycotting any entertainment, especially as black athletes and black entertainers.
If they could do that, if they all got together and did that, that would be the most powerful thing in the world, because it shows economic. Sometimes you have to understand. Not sometimes you have to understand. So this is about economics, right? The whole thing is about economics. Slavery was about economics, and we're talking about economics now. Oppression is about economics and power. Some of it, most of it, 90% of it. If they hit them like that, a unified group of, if they protested like the French protest, right? When the French go on strike, if one segment if the airline goes on strike, the truckers go on strike. You know what I mean? So that they unify that and they have power. If the NFL, the NBA, and everybody else went on strike at the same time, all the black folks, that would be a really powerful statement.
What's the statement?
I completely agree, though. Like this, there is a statement there, and I love how you bring up France, and because when they do general strikes, they do general strikes. Transportation's involved. Like the economy shuts down, and
they shut it down.
Listen, I'm gonna bring it back. I'm gonna bring it back to antiquity here, to Rome. Bread and circuses, man. That's what sports are. It's to keep the public distracted so they're not able to get angry at the government in place. And listen, I say that I love sport, love it, but I don't. I agree with the message. I get what you're saying, Phil, about them not exactly being the best messengers. Not exactly.
And that matters. That definitely matters.
I get that matters, but I do like the message behind it, because the reason these protests have been so strong and haven't lost steam is because, one, COVID, people are home, people are like agitated, people are sick of being at home, and on top of that, that there was no sports to distract people. So people just galvanized behind that and took that energy into the streets. And if you bring back sports, the energy is going to drop. Start getting that sense of normalcy back. Everything's okay. I've got my TV on, the game's on, everything's cool. Whereas if we say, no, everything's still not cool, and it's not coming back until we make things different. So there's a statement in that.
Yeah, so I'll say this, right? And again, with me, I always see gray. I can never see black and white. My first post was, I'm in complete agreement with Kyrie, no matter even though this is the messenger, right? He's a flat earther. Because I do think that plays a part in how you see the world, right? Again, I just can't necessarily ride with you. If he said that man didn't walk on the moon, I could get behind that, because I don't think that took place. But but back to this point, I look at it and say, okay, yeah, this can be a pivotal moment in this movement. And so it is a distraction, because I don't think people can chew gum and walk at the same time. And that's what you're asking people to do. Again, I don't even want to get into the ethnicity aspect of it, because I do think there are a segment of black people who are more than capable of watching basketball and watching sports and saying, all right, you know what, I'm back out here in these streets, right? And we protest, and we're really after it. But I do think there's a segment that's like, it's a footnote. It becomes a footnote, everything that's taking place. I think Mike is right. I talk about it all the time. Like, it was no way that this was going to happen without, it's a perfect storm, right? It's a perfect, hold on one second. It's a perfect storm when we talk about COVID, when we talk about George Floyd, when we talk about when we talk about, no sports to being able to take place as a result. This is a perfect storm for this type of movement that is taking place. When we talk about who else will the message be lost. All right, so we're talking about white folk, right? White folk, once sports is back, yeah, I could see a lot of people who probably already didn't give a damn about the Black Lives Matter movement taking place anyway. This is even more reason for them to turn a deaf ear to it, right? But again, maybe you're giving people more credit than they deserve, and that's what I see with this. Because conversely, I look at it as, all right, this isn't something that's about 3 months long. Let's say they didn't continue with the NBA season, right? It was canceled. It's coming back around in October. And so then what are you willing to risk, right? Kyrie Irving's not playing regardless. So it's easy for him to say. It's not like he's able to go out there within the next, month or so and be able to play. He's on the sideline. Dwight Howard, now he has something to lose if he says, all right, you know what, I'm going to stand out. But again, those who stand out and first they don't announce it, they just make it happen. Right? Because now Dwight put himself in kind of a pickle where you're saying, listen, this movement is happening, but I can play. So now what are you going to do, Dwight? Are you going to sit here and say, you know what? Because you don't have to play. They're telling people you do not have to play. You know what I mean? And so with that, and then we're talking about something that's going to take, this is going to take years and years on end if we're going to ever see the type of progress that we need. So again, are they sitting out 1 month? Are they sitting out a year? Are they sitting out 5 years?
But that's what I'm saying. If they organize, let's say that the goal is to influence the billionaires that own these franchises, right? Because the billionaires pay for politics. If we can get the billionaires' pockets hurting, then they might be more inclined to at least change the politics from their side, right? But you have to do that en masse. They have to do that as 90% of them have to walk out. And they can walk out and play ball in gyms and still get paid. They might not be able to get paid at the level that they're getting paid now, but didn't Ice Cube just start a league, a 3-person league? So there's an infrastructure that's already been started and is owned by a black man. So if all the black NBA players walk out, they forget their dreams about being part of this systemic, what am I trying to say? This product of capitalism, right? In that way, and they move to take back an entire economic profit system and put it back into the black community. Not just donating, but you actually start something new or become part of something that's black owned, and then you can spread all of that wealth out as you want into, you can hire, you can put executives in place, you can step away from that whole infrastructure. What does that say? That's real power. But I don't know if we can, I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if we can detect. But I'm saying, but we have to imagine that big, though. That's the only way we're going to get there. We're not going to get there if we keep imagining becoming a white man.
I get that.
We're not going to.
But yeah, here we are. We're not, right here we are, and when we talk about,
I'm saying we have to start to imagine a different way. If they stepped away from that and started something new and put all these things that we're talking about in place, or at least two of them, if you just put two of them in place, like we only hired people to work in our arenas who were formerly incarcerated, or whatever the platform was, or we only hired women, or we only hired, they're not trans. They're not that far, but I'm saying, at least economically, you could impact the community in a way that would be so powerful. And I just think we have to start thinking differently. I know I'm trying to think differently in my own small world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What I'm doing now is going to be catapulted into, a buddy of mine wants to start a company. I'm like, let's go. I don't have to have my own company. I can be whatever you need me in your company right now. You know what I mean? What you need me to do. And if 10 of us do that, I did a podcast yesterday where we were talking about this. The brother was so hurt by everything that's going on, is that he couldn't even speak. You know what I mean? He couldn't even speak because he's had to become something that he's not throughout his entire life, just to get money from this power structure, the nonprofit dance power structure, right? So that's a nonprofit man dealing with small amounts of money. These guys have a bank that they don't need money for the rest of their life. They can walk away from that fucking shit and not miss a beat.
Yeah, I think that's key in this, is like the normal everyday working class, say, unless they have like so many people behind them, it's impossible for them to walk away because they'll get fired, right? And we don't have unions strong enough to hold our jobs in place. But somebody that's making millions and millions of dollars a year that does have the ability to be like, yo, we can actually use our economic strength right now by pulling away from the table and saying, listen, because I agree, I think there is a chance that they could get the people that own these teams to start moving their money in a different direction, right? To make them have to make statements, because it's going to hurt their pockets. The owners want gains back.
Yep,
because
they want gains back. I'm sorry. And I just feel like the entertainers and the sports, because black people spend money. We spend money. If one white person doesn't come to another NBA game, they're still going to make millions. They're still going to make millions. Once they build,
No, that's interesting, Zane. You got me. I think you might got me. I think I might actually pick a side. I think I might say I agree with you. No, it's because I think that's where it is. I think when we talk about so probably now it's 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, I did this exercise at one of the groups where, the men came in and I had pictures for them to color, right? And we're coloring, pictures of lions and flamingos, and I didn't know how it was going to be received. And so the people came in and, about 15, 20 brothers, and they looked and was like, this what we doing? And the Muslim brother, he was like, all right. It sat down and he started coloring, right? And we started having these conversations. And the reason I did it was because it's the idea that unless you're a superb artist like Justin Wildington, who did this Biggie painting behind me, especially as a black man, you're no longer allowed to color just for the sake of coloring, right? It has to be something behind it. You have to be an artiste, right? You have to be a painter. You can't just do it for the love of creativity, right? And that's what, and I think the parallel that you brought to my attention, and I'm appreciative of that, is just that piece of imagination, right? We can't imagine a world. We're no longer allowed to imagine a world where we're sitting at 36 and we're coloring. No, you have to be you're indoctrinated into this specific system, and this is how the wheels go. You can't imagine your life being something else. And so, and now when I think about my own life, it's funny. I emailed Dr. Harry Edwards. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's a professor out in California. He's covered so much about sports and social justice and Tommy Smith and all of them. And you know, I wrote in the email because I'm trying to get him on the show, and I was like, you know, I don't know why I was drawn to you at such a young age, right? Like I was drawn to you. I didn't have any idea as to why, except these last couple years when I really started to lean into my blackness. And for so long, I was straddling the fence on, you know, this white world of academia. And here you are saying, yo, this is who the fuck I am, right? And I'm going to give you this work, and this is just what it is, and being unapologetic about it. And so, you know, it's just literally what you're saying is that exact same thing. Saying, all right, let's not worry about it restarting in October or December. If necessary, we'll start our own, right? But we're not allowed to have that imagination because, again, we start to throw the billions of dollars out, and that's what they do, right? One of the guys that I enjoy listening to, Bomani, I talk about him a lot, talk about, you know, they can rip up the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, if they do not play here. And it's just like that fear, right? That fear. Okay, you rip it up. We don't have to come back to the table, right? We can go if we want to do a big three, have Ice Cube expand upon that, because and that's what I tell people all the time. And so, yeah, now you see me working through this right now. Like, I'm the commodity, right? And I think that's what Dwight is saying. I think that's what Kyrie is saying. They're saying, yo, we're the commodity. Right? None of this moves without us. It makes it difficult when you don't have the stature of a LeBron James, who's the one who's saying, yo, I'm going to go play. And Patrick Beverly, who's on a lesser level, saying, well, if LeBron's saying we going to play, then we all hooping. You know what I mean? And that was his exact tweet. If LeBron say we playing, then we hooping. You know, and so, yeah, now I'm completely over the side now, right? Because again, it's this imagination that the people who say, yo, you can't talk about defunding the police and abolishing the police. Like, how can you have that conversation? That's ludicrous. But now here we are.
We have to imagine things so different that we're not replicating an oppressor. You know what I mean? And it's hard for us because this stuff is embedded in us. It's embedded. That's why I have one friend who is part of the farming community, and he thinks so differently than I do because I'm stuck in a capitalist way of thinking. And I know I'm stuck, and these conversations is trying to help me push myself out of it. And what I do in my dance community, I try to push myself out of it. But I come from a woman who is anti-establishment in terms of my dance world. Jo Myers Brown. I watched her and how she navigated this infrastructure of the nonprofit dance world. She doesn't give up her identity for anybody. She doesn't sell out for anybody. And she suffered for that monetarily. But for me, it is the biggest example of how to navigate this world that I've ever been privy to witness. And I witnessed it firsthand and at her knee. You know what I mean? And when we talk about women, that's another thing. All the women that I was raised by women. I was raised professionally by women. I was raised personally by women and men too, but women were the strongest influences in my life. So when we talk about women, sometimes I have to readjust. I mean, I understand male power in the entire world, but my world had, and it was, so I don't know where I'm going with that, but say that in terms of why I may look at the world a little bit differently and see some things and miss some things. You know what I mean? I think I may miss some. I miss a lot of things too, but I'm trying to be open to them. But I really think we have to work hard at reimagining anything that's about money. You know what I mean? And how can we translate that into community? And how did our forefathers do what they did? I keep bringing up Karen Hunter, but Karen Hunter always quotes this thing about the years right after slavery ended, that the freed black men put $2 million into the Freedmen's Bank. I heard her say that again today. $2 million. What kind of money, what kind of pennies did they have to put together to put that much money into a bank? $2 million. In the 1860s, 1870s? That's a lot of money for people who come from nothing, who came right out of slavery. So we can make things from nothing. But we got brainwashed into thinking we have to be a part of this. We want to be a part of this. Yeah, we want to be a part of what's on paper, like the humanity that's on paper. But the capitalism, we have to try to divest ourselves from that and think more about community, because that's where our power is. Our power is in it's not in just, I mean, it's in economically finding power. Don't get me wrong. I know that there has to be a balance between how, but we can't worship it. We have to understand its use and its necessity in a way that we don't become a slave to it, and then again, a slave to capitalism, and then again, a slave to a system.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot about the working class in general, right? In the sense that, sure, NBA superstars aren't what you think of as working class, but in a sense, they are unionized. They do have an agreement. They have collective bargaining agreements. They go to the table with a certain kind of working class power, and the action of it does bring it back to community, because they're recognizing the movement over monetary gain or over their own security in the league. And I agree, Zane. Like, the only thing that's going to get us through any of this right now is restoring a sense of community in ourselves, because America has become so individualized, so capitalistic, so I'm going to reach their level, right? I'm going to get to that bank account. I'm going to get to that car. And hearing NBA stars say, this game that I love to play isn't as important as what's going on in communities right now. There's power in that message. And I love how you brought up imagination, because it is about imagination. We have to see that there's a chance for this. There was a great tweet I read the other day from Stephanie Keene, who runs Incense Trap and Yoga. And she said, I remember first hearing about abolition and thinking, we can do that? I just hadn't had the imagination for it before. A lot of people are having that moment, or the one just before it right now. It's hard to imagine a thing you don't know, but you do it all the time, right? And I think that hits on exactly what you were talking about. Like, we need to see beyond the system we're trapped in and be like, no, we got a chance here, so we got to do something different than we've been doing. And I think Kyrie being vocal about this is something different than we've been doing.
Yeah, man, I'm sad now, man. I'm sad because I think I finally put a word to it. You know what I mean? Imagination. Like, I think that's what I've been doing in my own life, right? Where I walked away from a city job because I imagined something different for myself, and I continued along this path and getting these degrees because I saw something different and continue to see something different for myself. And when we start to think about it, like how many of us lose that. I'm trying to find this, and go ahead, you can talk, Zane. I'm trying to find this Tupac line that I quote so often, but go ahead, I'm gonna find it.
I was just going to say that, and this is something that Raphael talks about. Raphael Freeman, he talks about. He said the gatekeepers are no longer there in a sense. They don't even need networks. You don't even need networks now. You could have an entire league that was broadcast through, streaming or whatever. You don't even need them. You could go directly to, I'm just saying. That's what imagination is. I'm just.
And
what's
it's funny you say gatekeeper too, because there is no one at the gates anymore. We're just allowing the ideas to still be at the gates and tell us that we can't. Like it's
right. We're stuck
Yeah.
there. We're stuck. Like we're stuck. That like the whole dance community now and education and stuff, online stuff has been because of COVID. You have to imagine. Nobody ever thought you were going to be teaching dance classes online, because that's one of the things that you feel like you need a visceral response. You need to be in the studio, you need to hear the music. But all these people all of these teachers and dancers and everybody in my field are learning how to do that and how to bridge this gap. And they're being forced to use their imagination. They're being forced to do something. And I think if anything is in the air, it's this thing that we're talking about now. Because everybody has had to find another way. You've had to figure it out. So it could translate. If it could translate into busting an economic system, but not losing the economy for us.
Yeah. Raphael was actually tuned in. You know what I mean? So I guess he heard your shout out. I was able to find that Tupac, because I feel like this conversation could go on and on. And we definitely going to continue, because there's going to be more shit that's going to take place. Let's see. So and everybody go listen to Kendrick Lamar's Mortal Man. It's a 10-minute song. At the end, he has this Tupac interview from like 1993 when Pac was over in like the Netherlands or somewhere over there. And so Kendrick, and again, clearly the interview didn't happen. They put in his part and they put in Pac's part to make it seem like they were sitting next to each other. And so Kendrick asked, well, how long will you think will it take before N-words be like, we fighting a war, I'm fighting a war I can't win, and I want to lay it all down. And this is where we talk about the imagination part, because Pac says, in this country, a black man only has like 5 years we can exhibit maximum strength. And that's right now while you're a teenager, while you're still strong, while you still want to lift weights, while you still want to shoot back. Because once you turn 30, it's like they take the heart and soul out of a man, out of a black man in this country, and you don't want to fight no more, and you don't believe me. You can look around. You don't see no loudmouth 30-year-old mother effers. You know what I mean? And I think what Pac is saying is they take that imagination away from you, right? And that's why we see so many, it's really millennials who are pushing this movement. You know what I mean? What's under millennial? Generation Z. Gen Z. You see them truly pushing it because, I talk about us being the middle child, where we see both ends, that Zane's generation, and where you want to have a good job, the benefits, you want to play it safe. And we see the opposite end where Generation Z is like, F it, man. We go for broke. We'll figure this all out. And they starting to get within these companies and they like, yeah, this don't look right. You know what I mean? They're saying like, yo, yeah, no, we're not feeling this. And they take into the streets and they're challenging people and saying, no, that Confederate flag ain't working. We getting up out of here. We not waiting for what your system said, because y'all had an opportunity to get this piece done. And I think that's when Dave said, listen, y'all, it's in good hands, right? I'm good with being in the back seat. You know what I mean? Y'all some good drivers, because he see what's being pushed out here now. And so, yeah, that imagination piece, I'm definitely going to have to sit and think about that, man, and just the different areas of my life, now that I truly have a word to put to it. Because, again, when do you even say imagination? You know what I mean? Like, we don't even say that anymore. Once it, that leaves our lexicon after 4th grade, So, oh, man. Thanks, Zane. I appreciate you, man. See, you came on for a reason. You was late. You know what I mean? Me and Mike was rolling. But no, it's definitely some good conversation. So I'm actually going to be on next week with Keaton Nichols. We're going to do he has a podcast called A Nickel's Worth. We both used to work for Word and worked for the Lounge radio show. So we're going to be doing a joint thing next Monday. So the hashtag You Good Man will be following after, or maybe we'll just do it on Tuesday, and do it that way. Listen, Mike, Zane, I appreciate you all for coming through.
Always.
again, we need that. You know what I mean? We need to think. We need to, because we're not even having conversations. A lot of us right now, we're just seeing what's being posted on social media, and we're talking at each other. These aren't even conversations where we're pushing back on thoughts to get to a point where you can say, "Damn, it really is the imagination that's been taken from us." Right?
Speaking of imagination, I sent you a video that I made with the Koresh Dance Company. I didn't make it. I was asked to be a part of it. I think it's very powerful. I sent it to you, and I want you to send it to Mike. You talk about imagination and creativity. This was a project in divine order.
Word. And Mike, as always, definitely appreciate you.
It's called The Elephant is in the Room.
Is it on YouTube or is it?
It's on his page. I sent it to you. It's on Vimeo.
Okay.
Vimeo.
Yeah.
Vimeo.
Got you. So everybody else, we will be back. Well, I will be back. I will be back tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to be some more F stuff that's going to be coming along within the next 24 hours or so. So we will be talking about it. I'm tired, man. I gotta go think about imagination now. Like imagination, because it impacts so much. Like even like I haven't written in like 2 months, like since the pandemic started. I think it's just because I think I stopped imagining and got so caught up in just what's happening right now and the reality of what's taking place, where we don't even allow ourselves the opportunity to drift anymore. I think that's a part of. That's what, and when we talk about the idea of mindfulness and self-care and all of that, and that focus on the present, I got to think about it some more, try to make some connections. But, that could also be impeding why we're not imagining anymore, right? Because we're so focused on being what's in front of us and what's happening, what we're feeling, that we're not allowing ourselves just to drift and just to be, which I guess is a part of the mindfulness. Again, I'm working this out as we speak right now. So I definitely appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow at 7:00. So until next time, America, don't forget to hold on, Mike. Peace.